Today, you're going to hear from me and you're going to hear from Kim BERGEN-JACKSON. We're going to talk to you and introduce the concept of age-friendly care. But one of the things we want you to know about this series is we want you to understand and know about age-friendly care as an organizational approach. And we'll talk to you about that. But what our team in collaboration with the University of Iowa has done is we've partnered age-friendly care with really reinforcing self-care and skills for our daily caregivers. And we'll explain more to you about that as we get started. So we're going to introduce age-friendly care, but in each one of our courses, we're going to partner that content with some skills and resources that can help maintain the health, well-being, and hopefully sustain our workforce when it comes to daily caregivers. Today, we're going to hear a case from Nancy Hamilton. She's the executive director at Hearthstone Senior Living Community in Pella, Iowa. And she's not here with us. She's going to join us here in a little bit, but we do want to thank her for presenting this case. Some of the cases are fairly similar, but we're going to wrap our team around it. We're going to wrap our community around it, and we're going to address some of her concerns. So we really want to thank Nancy for sharing her case and talking with us about what's going on in her nursing facility. If you have an issue or organizational issue that you'd like to share with our team, you can contact Project Echo at kumc.edu, and we'd be happy to share your case with our team, and we can consult around that as well. All right, we're going to do some quick introductions, and then we're going to get started today. So Kim, let's start with you.
Hi, Shauna. Thanks. I'm Kim BERGEN-JACKSON. I'm the administrator at Oaknoll. I'm also on the board for LeadingAge Iowa and adjunct at the University of Iowa. And I'm very happy to be here and have my team from Oaknoll here as well.
You have an excellent team. Let's meet them. KALEIGH, let's move to you.
KALEIGH, I'm a social worker at Oaknoll. I've been with Oaknoll organization for about 7 years.
Good to have you today. SARA, we'll move to you.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm SARA RUHLMANN. I'm the director of nursing at Oaknoll. I've been here over 12 years. I've been the director of nursing for about 6.5.
Good to have
you.
PAIGE.
You're still on mute, girlfriend.
Sorry, my name is Paige. I work here at Oaknoll. I've been a CNA for a long time, but I've been working at Oaknoll for about 12 years.
Nice to have you here today. And STACIA.
Hi, my name is STACIA. I have also been a CNA for several years, but I have been a CNA at Oaknoll for almost 11.
So glad to see all of you and have you here with us. I'm going to ask our team, because Kim and I are going to co-present. We're not doing the slides ourselves. We're going to ask our team to bring up the slides and help us navigate through that. All right, and today we're focused on an introduction to age-friendly care. And some of you all may know about age-friendly care. Maybe you've implemented it or tried to implement it, but we're going to go through that today. We're going to discuss the 4 M's of age-friendly care. And then we're going to explain the importance of encouraging our nursing staff and particularly our daily caregivers to meet their own basic needs when they're at work. If your organization or facility is like many others, you might be facing some workforce issues at this point in the game. And we're going to talk about how we can really utilize age-friendly care, not only for our residents, but to mirror that and how we encourage our daily caregivers to take care of themselves. So let's talk a little bit about age-friendly care. I don't know if you're familiar with this approach or not. As I started working with the University of Iowa, I came to learn that really this framework that we really encourage and reinforce as a perfect fit for nursing homes was really born out of the hospital setting. And so really what age-friendly does is it focuses on the person, their quality of life, and doing what matters most to them. So improving our age-friendly skills and adopting it as an approach organizationally, it helps us to get to know the resident as a person, as a human being that has lived a long life, maybe a full life, and getting to know that person helps us understand things from their perspective, and it really communicates our respect and our care about them. As they start to feel safe and supported, and we're reducing their risk of frustration and stress. And the more we're able to do that and connect on that human level, it can really enrich our sense of work and our connection with our job. Now, of importance, I've mentioned this once already, is that our motto in doing this training is we want everyone to remember that what's good for the resident is also good for daily caregivers. So our residents really are unlikely to get high quality care if the person caring for them, the daily caregiver in particular, is feeling stressed or burdened or even frustrated throughout the day. Okay, next slide. So age-friendly care starts, we talked about the 4 M's. It starts with what matters to the resident, what matters to the older person. And then we look at medication, mobility, and mentation. What we're going to really, in this series, we're really going to focus on some of our later sessions, the dementia, delirium, and depression. And all of these things can overlap with each other and with doing what's important. So we're really going to look at these M's. We're going to talk about how we can understand them and implement them organizationally. And it really is a big shift away from the medical model. The medical model that focuses on illness and disease treatment, we're going to instead focus on the person and really become person-centered and think about the person first. Okay, next slide. So what matters to most older adults is often a 3-part question, and it includes life and living related to their values, their beliefs, that really direct their daily living and their goals for the day, right? What does the person enjoy? What brings them happiness? What gives them a sense of meaning? Their values and beliefs about life. And those things are really going to overlap with their health and health care, even though those are different things. We're going to ask questions about health, and that includes the person's health-related conditions, their concerns, medical and mental health issues, their functional challenges or changes related to aging, like vision and hearing. And then we're going to ask questions about healthcare, and that's the treatment that we're providing for any medical problems, diseases, or conditions. So the age-friendly framework starts with questions about life and living and how those values and preferences influences what matters about their health and healthcare. So we start with the person and their life and living goals. So can we go to the next slide, please? So there's a lot to get to know about individual residents, and being person-centered really means that each person has their own values, beliefs. It's not cookie cutter, right? We want to know what matters to them in terms of life and living that are really unique to them. And in turn, daily caregivers who ask these questions and really get to know the person can really greatly improve care. By asking some simple questions about what's important to the person and getting to know that person. So the goal is to get to know the person and what they prefer or what they value, and really use that to inform care. And what we've seen with this approach is that when daily caregivers are empowered to do these things and really connect on a personal level, that their quality of work improves, right? Their joy in work improves, their purpose improves. And so we really encourage this not only for the resident, but for the daily caregiver as well. Okay, next slide. So the point is that daily caregivers make a big difference, and you're going to hear us say this in every course. They make a huge difference in the quality of care that older adults receive. They spend more time with residents than any other team member. So using that time to talk to the person is so very important. And instead of working in silence or just giving direction, it really shows that the person is cared for, that the resident is cared for and is involved in the conversation about their life and well-being. So we really encourage daily caregivers to ask about the person, ask about their life. If you're in their room with them, ask about the pictures you see on the wall or the personal possessions that they have. See if you can get to know their story and use those questions that, in a way that builds a relationship and maybe can improve their sense of comfort and even joy in their environment. That information helps our daily caregivers better understand the person, to follow their care, and then helps make sure that the resident is able to enjoy life and focus on what's important to them. Okay, next slide, please. So the focus of what matters most in daily care and activities can be different than what the focus might be for health concerns or health issues. So the daily caregiver's role isn't necessarily to extend treatment decisions, but to learn to learn about what matters most, and then inform things like medication and mobility, if that makes sense. So we're not asking daily caregivers to make healthcare decisions. We're really asking them to get to know the person. And as we learn those values, they might inform things like medication and mobility, but we're not asking the daily caregiver to take the role of making medical decisions. There are lots of choices, lots of preferences for what matters that daily caregivers can control and influence, and they could have a positive or maybe sometimes negative effect on the other 4 M's. So asking residents about what might make this day a good day is a really good practice, and can help us really inform their care in the long run. Okay, next slide, please. So the important roles of daily caregivers can't be emphasized enough. I think we all know that. They are the backbone of nursing home care, and they really can make or break person-centered care in any setting. So it's really up to them to know the resident, to know what matters most, and then to share that with the rest of us as well, right? So that we can all engage in providing personal care and person-centered care. We really can't underestimate the contributions of daily caregivers. And they're not just beneficial for the resident. If we shift the focus away from how many tasks can I complete in the day, is my job getting done, to really focusing on what matters as they provide care, it helps the team, the whole team, get to know the person because a daily caregiver has invested in that. And in turn, it reduces our risk of distress, and it helps both the staff and the resident by being person-centered. Okay, next slide, please. So we talk about positive engagement. Our positive engagement with older residents really helps us to establish an understanding of what matters to each person. So by sharing information about what daily caregivers learn, when daily caregivers share what they've learned, they help the whole team tie together what's important for the person and to their preferences for daily care and activities. Daily caregivers can also use the information to motivate our residents. You know, if we see a day, for instance, where Mrs. Smith, she's just really not wanting to do her daily cares, but we know how important attending her Sunday church services are, we might use that information, you know, and say, hey, you know, we're going to have church tomorrow, and you know, I know that you want to be fresh or you want to be cleaned up for church. You know, by taking that personal preference and reminding, sometimes we can motivate engagement in daily cares and that type of thing. The other important issue is that engagement with residents and observation and asking questions and sharing that information really helps our daily caregivers become more of a valued and respected member of the team. So in summary, daily caregiver conversations about what matters in daily care and activities makes a huge difference in the quality of lives for our residents. I don't think I have to preach about that very long. It makes sense, doesn't it?
Mhm.
But it also can make a huge impact on the quality of work and the quality of life for the daily caregiver, because it can increase sense of belonging, attachment, and purpose as well. So understanding what matters relies on a daily caregiver having ongoing conversations with residents, kind of being encouraged and empowered to do so, to best assure that that changing priorities for the resident are understood, and that we adjust routines and activities based on what matters to the resident. And of course, having daily caregivers feel empowered to share that information with the other team members and using the residents' own goals for daily care communicates respect and caring for the person, and really benefits the team as a whole. And I know I'm talking quickly. I apologize, but I wanted to give Kim time. Oh, we have a polling question. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Kim, do you want to lead this poll?
Sure, I sure will. So we're going to have polling questions with every session. And so it should pop up on your screen. The question is, how often do your daily caregivers miss a meal, stay late, come in early to help a resident, or wait until they get home to take a bathroom break? And you can choose one choice: rarely, sometimes, weekly, daily, or not applicable. And then we'll just have the poll go on till we have a majority. When you select a choice, it'll go away from your screen, and then we'll have the results. Shauna, while you were talking, I was thinking it's really about creating a community of belonging. Right, that's what we're talking about, is what matters most to the residents and the people who are closest to them, which are the daily caregivers.
You bet. I love that, a community of belonging.
Mhm.
You know, I'm seeing the results here, Kim. And we're about to shift into your segment here, right? But 30% are saying this isn't applicable. So we'll knock those out. And then 30% are saying one of these things could happen daily for our daily caregiver staff. And that's the reality. We know that that's the world that we're working in. But even to have 10%, almost 11% that it happens weekly, 20% that it happens sometimes, only 10% does this happen rarely. And I know a lot of the cases we're going to talk about really talk about workforce retention and even bringing the workforce in. These are real numbers. They make me feel sad. I know it's the reality. Maybe we can focus as we get through your slides, Kim, on how some of these activities, how we can address this and really improve the work-life joy for daily caregivers, because they do a lot when they're at work.
Right. So we can go to the next slide. So my portion, and it's really hard for me not to interrupt SHAWNA the whole time. So SHAWNA and I are really good at presenting together, but we sort of banter back and forth. So if I do end up interrupting, I apologize. But what we're going to talk about now may seem really basic to you, sort of a general understanding that what is good for the residents is also good for our daily caregivers in creating an environment where everyone can thrive. And I will say over the past 10 years, maybe 15, I've probably come to this conclusion wholeheartedly, in that if we ask our caregivers, our daily caregivers, to take care of the residents, and really our job in administration is to take care of our staff so they have the capacity to care for the residents. Next slide, please. So, and this is a good question. Can your staff meet their basic needs at work? Daily caregivers, we know, are really good at showing compassion to other people, but sort of like when you're on an airplane and they tell you to put your oxygen mask on first before you help somebody else, our caregivers sometimes feel as though they need to put the needs of everyone else in front of themselves. So it might not be uncommon for our caregivers to work an 8-hour shift or a 12-hour shift, or even pull a double if somebody calls in, and not take time to have a simple bathroom break, grab something to eat really quick. Maybe they feel like they can't leave the floor. I hear that a lot, because we're short-staffed, or because we've had recruiting challenges, which in Iowa City, it has been really bad in the past year. And I know I've heard about that across the state. And I see a lot of other Iowa friends from LeadingAge on the call, so I'm glad to see you. But when you're feeling that pressure under the gun and that you're taking care of everybody, you very often don't take a break. And I know that when I was a smoker, I always took a break because I had to go outside to have a cigarette. But when I quit smoking, I quit taking breaks. And the work never stops, right? So there is always work to be done. Daily caregivers might even have to rush through their meal or not eat their meal at all because they want to get back to the residents. And those demands and stressors that come with working as a caregiver can't be predicted day to day, right? Every day is different. So the ability to be flexible is critically important and rise to the challenges for caring for people with complex personal and healthcare needs. I also think what SHAWNA talked about, what matters most to the residents are going to talk to the daily caregivers 10 times more often than they talk to the administrative staff, or they might talk to a housekeeper who they're very close with, or maybe somebody in dining services, or maybe they love their social worker. So I think the important piece is the messages get to the people that need to make that happen for the residents. For instance, if somebody has chronic pain, this is just an idea that came to the top of my head, and the medication they take are making them too drowsy to visit with their family, and the family visiting is the priority because they have a limited amount of time or whatever. The nursing staff needs to get involved with the prescriber and figure out a different pain medication so that they may be awake more. Maybe they only tell their daily caregiver that while they're getting them ready for the day, and the nurse would have no idea that they don't want to be that sleepy. So the communication between all the players in the team is critically important. Next slide. These are basic needs that are listed. I'm sure you know them all, but we're going to talk just briefly about hydration, drinking fluids, nutrition, breathing, which is so important, and then getting the right amount of sleep. Next slide, please. So you hear from everyone all the time how much water we need to drink, right? Promoting hydration helps regulate our body temperature, prevents infections, does wonders for your healthy body functioning. It can improve your sleep as well. So it's just important to make sure that our daily caregivers have access to what they need. So a water station, just like the residents, you're promoting hydration with the residents, and you do that with the daily caregivers as well. Water stations, I know people have juice stations, pop machines. Pop's not really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about water, but sometimes people, the helpful hint here says that they don't focus on hydration because of the subsequent need to go to the bathroom. That is true. And it also, the residents will do the same thing, so that if they have something to do, they don't want to take their diuretics or they don't want to drink water. And for the staff, mostly, I think it is just a timing thing. And that's why it's important to have a couple of caregivers on the call with us. Stacia and Paige are here, and they'll tell me if it's hard to get hydration in. And I know people are really good at getting those bottles and buckets and carrying them around. But you have to be careful that somebody else doesn't get a hold of your container. So next slide, please. Encouraging nutrition. People very often don't take breaks, and they don't eat, or they eat junk. So I certainly am not going to be one to sit here and talk to you and lecture you about dietary needs, but it's important to plan ahead, to make a plan together. If you're working short this day, you only have 4 caregivers when you normally have 6. Those 4 people really need to plan ahead for the day and figure out when they're going to get what they need to get through the day. Opt for whole foods instead of junk. Who doesn't love a Rice Krispie treat? I would be dishonest if I was telling you right now I would pick a salad over a Rice Krispie treat. But balance your meals. Don't skip the whole day, and avoid those super sugary snacks. At least once a week, maybe try that. Next slide, please. This breathing exercise is so interesting to me. So people who are under stress and who are working hard tend to breathe very shallow, and you don't really notice if you're not paying attention. So paying attention to your breaths, particularly when you're feeling a lot of stress. And I prefer the box breathing method, which is listed here, but the 4-7-8 breathing method is also very effective. But if you don't mind, since we have a little time, I'll just walk you through this box breathing. I like this one because it's the same number. So you're going to breathe in to a count of 4, hold your breath for a count of 4, and then breathe out for the count of 4, and then hold your breath again for the count of 4. So can we just try this once together? So I'm going to ask you to breathe in, count to 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out for the count of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold that for another count of 4, and then you can repeat that pattern. It's very calming for me. I don't think breath work works for everybody, but it is good to know if you're in the middle of an anxious situation, just remember to breathe. You can try that 4-7-8 breathing too, but my lung capacity is not good enough to play that one. So breathing is controlled by your brain, right? So sometimes when you're feeling stressed or anxious, your breathing rate changes. But if you focus on your breathing, I've had this compared to smoking. So if you are former smokers on here, you'll know what I'm talking about, or current smokers. When you go outside to take that break, you get away from the chaos. You lean against a wall or wherever you're at to have that cigarette. You light the cigarette, and that first breath you take in, you take a deep breath in, and then you blow it out. That's what I'm asking you to do here, just not with cigarettes. Because I'm not encouraging cigarette smoking, although I smoked for years and it was lovely. You have the power to change your breathing pattern. So controlling your breath will help you manage your stress. You'll be surprised if you haven't done it, if you start doing it this week, and just see how much clearer you can think things through, and how much calmer you feel. You'll eventually be able to loosen your shoulders maybe, because we do this a lot. Loosen your shoulders a bit and give your diaphragm a little bit more room to move in and out. So practicing these skills with a buddy, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, can be helpful. Any questions about that? The next one is sleep. I know you've heard this a million times too, but I'm just going to tell you that saying 5 hours is enough for you is probably not accurate. We're supposed to get between 7 and 9 hours of sleep per night. And I would say some nights closer to 10 or 11 would be great, but it does
Especially for the
cause,
younger daily caregivers, right, Kim? I mean, the closer they are to adolescence, it's in that 10 to 11 hour range.
It
right?
is,
So if
yeah.
our daily caregivers are younger, that it's more sleep that they need, not less.
well, and I think a lot of the daily caregivers are working more than one job, or they're working extra hours to make extra money. And so the time that they do get to sleep while they're balancing all the demands at home as well as work is even more important. So just think about that, what a chronic sleep deprivation will do. It can impair your decision making and judgment. It can make you anxious and crabby. It can make you short with the residents. Nobody wants that to happen. It can impact your self-esteem. And so just trying to make sleep a priority among the other things is what I'm going to encourage you to do. Try it to keep a consistent bedtime, which I know can be difficult. And the time you get up during in the morning, if you can keep it the same, it helps. Next slide, please. Find a buddy. I love this slide. Coworkers, you're together a lot. You might be more together with your coworkers than you are your family some weeks if you're working full time. And so finding a buddy that you can check in with, ensure they're taking care of themselves and they'll ensure that you're taking care of yourself. I think it promotes well-being and self-care to say, are you okay? Step in if you see something's happening and say, can I give you a break? It creates such a positive work environment for everybody and prioritizes the health and well-being of the workers as well as the residents. Next slide, please.
I think that's the last one. You're right, Kim. It's hard not to banter with you. That's just
I know.
our usual style. But you talked about how nursing facilities can help reinforce and promote wellness in their staff. You talked about even having a water station, even having a sign up that says, have you taken a breath today?
Right.
Have you taken a restroom break? Things that let our daily caregivers know that it's okay to take care of yourself. And even that it's a priority for administration, that your health is important to us, flyers, pamphlets, signs on the wall that helps reinforce the health and well-being of our daily caregivers can go a really long way, can't it?
And I think it's okay for somebody to say, I need an extra break, not to abuse that, but to say, like, I need a minute off the floor. I just need to collect myself. Or I need to go talk to someone about this. My person, I've encouraged our staff to find a person that doesn't fix problems for them, but can listen to their problems and help them figure out what the right answer is. I think it's so important. I'm not talking about venting, which is, can be sort of ugly and time consuming. I'm talking about really processing through something with someone that you trust, who values you. And I think the message from the management staff should be that we value you and we want you to stay and we want you to enjoy your job, because when the daily caregivers are enjoying their job, the residents thrive.
Everybody thrives. And
Everybody thrives.
To really reinforce, developing a system of a wellness buddy, because I think I'm not a nurse, but as a psychologist, I'm going to tell you that if there's any profession that's notorious for putting the needs of someone else above their own, it's that nursing profession. It's almost like it's inborn. It's a part of who they are. And while we might preach, you need to stay hydrated, you need to get enough sleep. Sometimes what a nurse or anyone in that nursing profession might not do for themselves, they're willing to have a buddy and check in on that buddy and say, hey, have you taken a break today? Have you had a bottle of water? And so the buddy system, I think, is really important in the nursing profession, because nurses will check in on each other.
They do. And I think it's also important to I lost my train of thought. I looked over at one of the Zoom windows and I can see myself on somebody's computer screen and I completely lost my train of thought. So I'm sure it'll come back to me and I'll interrupt you later, Shauna.
But you know what? Nancy is here and she has the case. And sadly, I don't think her case is unique. I'd like to see if we can pull up her slides. And Nancy, can we test your microphone and make sure we can hear you?
Sure. Can you hear me?
I
Yes.
can. Thank you so much for presenting this case today. I'm going to mute and let you talk about what's going on in your senior living community, and we'll pick up on the other end, okay?
Sure. Thank you. I'm Nancy Hamilton. I'm an executive director administrator for Hearthstone, which is in Pella, Iowa. And we have all levels of care. And within our nursing care, we have memory care as well as a skilled household. And we really are based as a skilled, more of a social model of care. We have 16 residents in each house, and the households are all attached. So our goal, I feel like we're already very person first. We were kind of built that way. We had the ability to build from the ground up in about 2013. And when we started, I think the market for incoming team members was not as challenging as it is today. So we have in each household for 16 residents, a nurse, 2 CNAs, a housekeeper, and a homemaker who is primarily our cook. They are a dedicated team, so they usually only work in that household and sometimes in their sister household. And what we had known probably for the last 3 to 5 years, that nursing can be a challenge to staff, that we've maybe fallen short on having a full team of CNAs, but that we can share between households, and then our household homemaker and housekeeper might pick up, or our expanded leadership team can assist. And as of late, probably the last year, we've really struggled even with that hospitality team. And I'm sure that's not new to any of you, but with that housekeeping team, with our homemakers or our cooks in the household, kind of the glue that's always there to help pick up where needed or to answer call lights if the team gets busy. We've not had all of those. So that's been a challenge for us. Usually our homemaker, I kind of call them the mom of the house, because they were working 12-hour shifts. They came in at 6 a.m., worked till 6 p.m., and they would cook breakfast to order. So as residents got up, if it was at 6:15 and they wanted coffee and a bagel, they made that. If they got up at 10:30 and they wanted pancakes and toast, they made that. So just like at home, when residents got up, we got them breakfast as they were waking and per their preference. And that household model was so important and is important to us because they can smell bacon cooking from their room. That's increasing their appetite and their ability to eat and gain weight and stay at a healthy weight. In addition to, we have a smaller household, so they can walk to the dining room. We're not, corridors away. And just having that meal freshly prepared in front of them was a nice household feel and really helped with those physical and mental health outcomes. So in the last, I would say 6 months, where we've really struggled to have enough homemakers, we've kind of adjusted a few things. We noticed that we were getting a lot of lifestyles applications for our evening positions. I said, hey, let's add dining. So we have a 4-hour position now in the evenings from 4 to 8. That is a lifestyles team member who also serves the meals, helps to clean up the kitchen, and then does programming with residents after supper. We've had a lot of hits on that. I think we have 8 of our 10 positions filled for that. But when somebody is ill or they're not here, there's still that lack of coverage. And it's really, when I came in, I helped last Sunday evening, and I came in and my nurse was serving pork chops, and my CNA was getting everybody to the table and trying to get them ready. And the 2 of them, prior to me getting there, were getting supper ready and served to all of these residents. And that was my job, of course, to come in and assist at that point at 5:30. But then once everybody's done eating and we've served everyone and getting everybody back to their rooms for any after dinner assistance, then there's still the kitchen that we need to clean, and pots and pans and crazy stuff that we could get to after residents were settling in for the evening. But really just looking at ideas, if any of you are struggling with those same challenges in the evening, or for your dining team in general, we do believe that household model is best. But when I talk to my dining director and I say, how would you best serve 100 residents a fantastic meal that has great appeal and looks wonderful, tastes wonderful? And he's like, probably not in 6 different kitchens and, you know, all of those pieces. So we're just looking at, are there ideas out there? Maybe some of you are making meals in one big kitchen and having it served out. We've talked about prepping and then having it cook in the households. We still run into that challenge of who's serving the meal. And if there's pureed meals, the CNAs or the nurses having to do that. And then also, when we do that, usually we're serving on paper plates because we don't have someone that can help with all of the dishes. And that becomes a challenge as well and isn't real appetizing for residents and families. They get a little frustrated, of course, with that. So just looking for ideas if you might have any.
Thank you so much, Nancy, for sharing this case. I'm going to try to break it down really quickly, but before I do, I want to tell you how impressed I am with what you're doing and with your senior living community in general. When you said we were built that way. So in 2013, when they built your facility, it was person-centered. So what a great example of age-friendly, person-centered care. It's designed perfectly. It's the workforce, right? Where we're struggling to meet those needs. And I think that you all have done a lot of problem solving, but just to kind of recap, I think you're dealing with some of the same issues that a lot of nursing facilities, nursing homes are dealing with. You already have a person first, age-friendly approach, but because of the way that you're built and designed, it really is hard to staff and keep that going, particularly when it comes to meals. And we're going to open this up and we're going to ask people if they have any other questions that would help them better understand your facility. And we're going to ask if anyone else is faced similar challenges. But I know, Kim, when I work with residents of nursing facilities, food is like a game changer, right?
Yep.
And when there is an ability to choose your food, to say what you want, to have that need met, it can make all the difference in the world for behavioral and mental health and just quality of life.
Yeah.
And so prioritizing that and having that person-centered, that person first choice is so important. So I'd really like to see, what as a community as a community of practice, we might be able to offer to Nancy. But let's ask, do you all have any questions for Nancy or about her facility? Do you have any clarifying questions? Anything you'd like to know more before we step into the questions that she's asked? And you can feel free to open up your microphone and talk to Nancy directly.
Nancy, I was going to ask you, have you tried the universal worker concept where you train all of them to be CNAs and homemakers and lifestyle and?
Yeah, great question. So we tell our work team when they start that we have blended roles. So 80% of their job is what they're hired to do. The other 20% is whatever needs to get done, whether they're a nurse or, director, whatever it might be. So we do a lot of cross training. All of our lifestyles, housekeeping and homemaker teams are paid nutritional assistants so they can assist residents with that meal. And we have probably 5 housekeepers that are trained as aides as well. We do offer CNA classes and we pay for that if they're willing to do it. So that does help tremendously. I think, it's just that challenge of when there's not enough bodies, and I know we're all dealing with that. How do we stretch even further? Yeah.
Honorable Murphy is asking if your facility ever uses agency nurses or CNAs.
We had an interesting, just some interesting history. We actually had 2 licensed nursing communities within Hearthstone in 2020, and then we had some flooding and had to close one. So we just reopened 2 beautiful new households with 18 residents each. So we have opened one of them, but in order to open it, we did contract with 2 night nurses to be able to cover those shifts to be able to open. So those are the only 2 that we are currently utilizing are the 2 that were initially approved for opening a new household. Yeah.
In terms of, I don't know how households are built, Nancy. I'm sure there is so much work and organization that goes into filling a household. And I've never run a kitchen, but when you talked about, it's easier to prep in one place versus 6 kitchens, that makes sense. But in terms of how those communities are built and how they're filled, are there similarities with the residents so that, we're focused on efforts that would meet the needs of the majority, or is it pretty diverse within the communities?
That's a great question. As far as their primary lunch and supper menu, that is the same. And then we have an always available menu, so they can always order a cheeseburger or a grilled cheese or soup, something like that. Breakfast is where it's kind of it's all out there. So it just kind of depends. We've tried in those households where we might not have a cook, just fresh fruit and a continental breakfast or a hash brown casserole, something like that. They still like, hey, I want 2 eggs over easy and bacon. That's what I have every morning. That's what I want. So then it's, somebody getting behind there and getting in the kitchen and making that for them, or calling to the other household to bring it over. Yeah.
I admire your dedication to this. I want to ask, for those of you who are participating with us today, what are you doing? Are you facing similar issues when it comes to, the food preparation and availability for me is just, it's a hallmark of quality of life and being person-centered and providing age-friendly care. We would love to hear from anyone else on the line. Please feel free to open up your microphone and tell us, what are you doing in this domain, and are you facing similar issues when it comes not only to staffing, but particularly when it comes to meal preparation?
I can chime in a little bit. We have similar practice here. We've got a couple different areas where our residents reside. We have a dedicated memory care unit, a short stay unit as well, and then our main health center floor. Our loft is what is our memory care. They have their own kitchen and their own cook. A lot of times they have their own housekeeper that comes in. It's staffed with 2 aides at all times. A nurse floats between there and a different floor. We do breakfast as ordered, and it's kind of like an always available thing as well. But then the majority of the meals when it comes to lunch and dinner are prepped in our big kitchen down in the main health center, and then transported up to our loft or to the short stay. Short stay usually gets trays individualized because they don't have the kitchen, whereas the loft has the kitchen, so then they can then plate it out. They get the aromas going still and everything like that to entice the appetites. So maybe it would be worth looking into possibly preparing it in the larger kitchen and then transporting it to the smaller households to see if that could alleviate some things.
Yeah. Do you use like the big Cambro? Is that how you transport the meal, or is it more in the are they single servings and on plates already, or do you have them in the like in the serving dishes? They're still in the serving bowls and pans.
Yeah, they're mostly still in the serving bowls and the pans, and they're kept warm on a cart that goes up to our loft, and then they get plated out up there. I don't know too many specifics. Kim or Sarah may be able to chime in a little bit if you have more specific questions. But for the most part, it is transported as a whole and then plated out when it's in the kitchen in our loft, which is also like an open kitchen concept. It's got a breakfast bar and everything. So it allows for those smells to go out, and they can sit at the breakfast bar even and eat any meal right there. So they're right there in the mix of things. They can help prepare if needed, obviously, as abilities allow.
I think they heat the stove up upstairs just to make sure they keep everything in temperature, but and there's a big fridge, so all the cold things are up there, and they just transport the main dish. And I was just in Missouri looking at a greenhouse model, cottage model, and they have a prep kitchen that doesn't even have an oven, which was interesting to me. They prep everything and then send it out to be cooked in the cottages, and they thought that saved them time.
I bet it does. Yeah. When they did that, then Kim, do you know, did they have a separate cook in each household that was then putting it in and then getting it out and serving, or did they maybe stagger their meal times?
So they had it's a cottage with 10, I think, and all of their universal workers were called care partners. So they were all certified as nursing assistants. They were all through the food safe program, whatever that is, and trained in housekeeping. So when I was there, there were 10 residents, 2 universal workers, and everybody was up when we came because it was lunchtime, and one of the CNAs was in the kitchen making chocolate chip cookies, which, may I say, made the whole house smell delicious, and chicken and rice and whatever. So one person like took that dining role on for the day while the other person was out amongst the residents.
Very good.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yes.
Nancy, you talked about the 4-hour shifts and advertising. What kind of, it sounds like you had a decent response there. Can you talk a little bit more about that, and maybe even the need that you're seeing on the part of the worker to have a shorter shift or to have some flexibility there?
Yeah, absolutely. It just kind of came through. We were looking at the apps we had coming in, and we had none for dining, and I had, I think, 29 for 3 part-time lifestyles and programming team members, 4-hour shifts, college students. I'm like, goodness, just pull in the dining. And that has really worked pretty well. The challenge is, if any of you do schedules, you're adding 10 people or 12 people to cover, every evening, rather than, a simpler schedule with that 1 12-hour shift for the homemakers. But it's kind of fun because, of course, when you invite those younger college students in, they have more energy, they have new ideas, and they don't mind. Oh yeah, I can throw that in the oven. Yeah, I can pull it out. They're a little more flexible than some of our older team members that say, hey, I'm an aide or I'm a nurse and I shouldn't be having to do this, or that cross training piece.
Yeah.
So they're a little more open to that as well.
And what a fun age. I don't know if you're doing this already or not, but even to engage the getting to know the residents, and helping provide that education to the staff about, we might think of ourselves coming in to make a meal and I'm doing a job and I'm checking the list, but to really help those workers understand that this is quality of life, and the fact that you're here and you're willing and able to do this enriches someone's life. When I treat someone for depression and that's living in a nursing facility, oftentimes, you know, when we look at what's going on in your day-to-day life, if there needs for some diversity in food, or if they have lost a kitchen worker or a chef, it can really impact, you know, just emotional functioning, day-to-day functioning, and helping those workers see not only the value of what they're doing, but connecting it with the people that they're providing it for, developing those relationships. And really, if you're getting those college age students, and what a fun group, right? If we can make connections between the workers and the residents as well, I think could maybe be reinforcing for both, of course, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Any other thoughts from the team or others that are here with us today? Well, I learned so much when the cases come through, but I have to tell you, Nancy, I am super impressed just with how your facility is set up and what you're doing to maintain that. That problem solving and flexibility, I think, is very important. The more, I think it's true that sometimes the more age-friendly or person-centered we become, you know, it can really tax our resources. And, you know, all nursing facilities, I think, are struggling with workforce issues right now. But I think you have, you know, the magic formula here in terms of the job satisfaction, the purpose in work, the joy in work, really, especially if you can find the workers who want to work the shorter shifts or work around a different work or college schedule, developing that community angle. I'm a part of this community, and what I do can really make the difference between someone feeling isolated, alone, or even depressed, you know, is so very important, increases that purpose in work. Because you are a part of this ECHO community of practice, we want to share with you some resources for your daily caregivers and your staff. So, the University of Iowa worked very hard to develop some education for our daily caregivers. And there's 6 different modules, and every time you join us, we're going to give you access to a module that you can share with your daily caregivers. We're going to drop the link to this in the chat so you can copy it, but you can take the QR code or write down this web URL. But basically, every time we meet, we're going to open up training that's available for free to your daily caregivers. And what they can do is they can go in and get an introduction to what age-friendly care is and how they can apply it in their setting. Along with that, there's a podcast that Kim and I have done to talk about how we apply that and how it looks in real life. And then there's also a segment that associates how they can take what they're learning in age-friendly care and apply it to themselves and caring for themselves to help maintain their health and well-being. This is a really great resource. We're very proud to be able to offer it at no cost to all of our partners that have joined us today. So we do encourage you to grab a picture of that QR code or copy the link out, and please share it with your staff and help encourage the adoption of age-friendly care in your organizations. Really, we have found that, what's good for the resident is good for the daily caregiver. And the more we empower our staff to understand what age-friendly care is and how to care for themselves, we're doing a lot to sustain our workforce as well.
Shauna, can I just, I want to throw in that we're very mindful of how busy everybody is. And so the podcasts are on purpose, 7 or 8 minutes long. The animation is short. So we know this is very doable for your staff on purpose, because we know how busy everybody is. So please take advantage of it. We worked really hard on it, and I think it's pretty good.
Yeah. And we hope it's a great benefit to all of you and to your staff as well. With that being said, Kim and I are ready and revved up to see you next week. We'll see you next Thursday at 1:30. Next Thursday, we're going to be talking about communication skills. So of course, we'll talk about age-friendly approaches to communication, the importance of what matters and how to have conversations with residents. We'll also talk about communication skills that can assist your daily caregivers in communicating their needs and their role on the team as well. So we look forward to seeing you next Thursday, 1:30. We'll be here and we might banter a little bit more. It feels better.
I
when
think we will.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you all next week.